Well, my fellow movie lovers, they can't all be winners. And that's certainly the case with Longlegs and Maxxxine. In my opinion, don't hate me.
No, I'm a star! Please, I'm a star!
Here's why I am disappointed in both of these films. So with a video like this, I kind of don't even know where to begin, because the expectation for me anyway was that I was going to go into these movies and absolutely love them. Not because they're my preferred genre, something that I hold so close to my heart, but more so they just seemed like they had picked up enough steam, both in terms of, audience attention and in terms of filmic technicality. I mean, Ty West, for instance, with X and Pearl and now Maxxxine, completing that trilogy and sticking the landing was so crucial, especially when you were following two great movies, in my opinion, both very different in terms of style and substance. But X and Pearl were kind of fantastic, and so there were a lot of expectations for Maxxxine, and the bar was set very, very high. And in the case of Longlegs, I gotta say that the marketing team really made an impact on people that I am close to, people that I work with. People were paying attention to this movie because of how brilliant the marketing was. And if you're a fan of the channel and you've been here for any amount of time, you're gonna know that I personally should love these two movies. I mean, honestly, these were two of my most anticipated movies of this year, for the simple fact that I was really needing kind of that last craving, that last delicate bite of the trilogy that is X, Pearl, and Maxxxine. And then, for Longlegs, I think I just wanted a new Silence of the Lambs-esque kind of serial killer thriller. I wanted to finish the trilogy that Ty West started with X on a very high note, and for Longlegs, I kind of just wanted to see something that I hadn't seen in a while. And just because, I'm disappointed in these two movies, it doesn't mean that they're bad by any stretch of the measure. I think there are plenty of things to critique in both. Overall, I think they are solid movies. I don't think that they're, lingering kind of in that negative, terrible territory, but they're also not firmly planted in the good category either. And there are several reasons, but we're going to get into them. So I want to start with the movie that I've seen most recently, and that was Longlegs, directed by Oz Perkins. It stars Micah Monroe and Nicolas Cage, and it's kind of this serial killer detective drama. Micah Monroe plays a character, Agent Lee Harker, who is hunting a serial killer. She's an FBI agent and uncovers a series of occult clues that she must solve to end this terrifying killing spree. Her performance that she gives in this movie, I think, is nothing short of incredible. The very distinct character mannerisms of Lee Harker, the incessant repulsion that she has to acting like a normal, functioning member of society, I found really interesting. And from the get-go, that this character is brilliant yet deeply flawed, and I think that was the angle that I was most looking forward to with this movie, and that angle didn't disappoint. Andres Orochi was the cinematographer for Longlegs. I feel like the cinematography and the lighting were really key to getting us in that feeling, that atmospheric dread of I'm hunting someone who can never be caught. And what does that look like? How am I responding to it? How do I handle the immense pressure of my job when I get home from work? That kind of solidified its place for me in terms of technicality, that Longlegs was doing something really interesting. Where it kind of falls short, unfortunately, is the script. Oz Perkins not only directed this, but he wrote it, and I maybe have a feeling that if there was a different pensman that was at the helm of this project, it could have gone somewhere different with a story that was so critical to Oz Perkins, because overall it kind of gets into Hereditary territory when we talk about the latter parts of the second act and most certainly the third act. There is a direction that this movie pivots to that I don't feel necessarily lends itself to a cohesive story that was being told in Act 1 and most of Act 2, and for me anyway, that was the more interesting part of the story. The parts of the story in the script that I did like was the stark contrast, not in terms of set decoration alone, but in terms of lighting that we kind of can contrast these two sides of Lee Harker with. In the more minimalist aspect of the way that she keeps her house tidy and neat, organized, warm tones, warm lights, and the contrast that we get when we enter her childhood home, which is clutter, kind of cold lighting, and just absolute chaos. That's something that did feel like it was baked into the story, into the script rather. Unfortunately, that really amazing aspect of the script is lost by the time we reach the third act. It goes in a direction that I just feel kind of pigeonholes the whole entire movie to being subpar. And it's really disappointing, you guys, because I really wanted to like Longlegs, and it just didn't work for me. And another project that didn't necessarily work for me was Ty West's and his third movie in the X franchise with Maxxxine. Now, this is a movie where the hype was through the roof, right? I mean, you had people that love X and love Pearl, and it's almost like these two clashing clans almost of people who think that X is better and people who think Pearl is better. I'm really curious to know what you all think. For me, I personally prefer X. It's an ode to, 70s grindhouse, slasher smut, and overall I just felt like it was really cohesive, it was really tight, and it was really affecting. But the Technicolor darling that is Pearl has its own fan base and own audience, and for the record, I love both movies almost equally. I like X just a little bit more, but I thought Pearl was a really nice deviation, kind of this almost entirely separate subgenre within the horror umbrella, and I thought it was brilliant. And consistently through both of those movies and then into Maxxxine, Mia Goth really shows you everything that she has. While it was a more subdued performance for Maxxxine in this movie, I felt like Mia Goth, especially like in the opening scenes, really is given a lot of material to chew on, and she does fantastic with it. It's a very different performance than you'll get in X and Pearl, but again, I think that it's just as good, just less showy. And where I think that Longlegs actually trumps Maxxxine is in terms of the overall antagonist in the story. I mean, Nicolas Cage is just unrecognizable almost in Longlegs, and his performance has so much impact on the viewer and on the story itself, as where with Maxxxine, I felt like, with the Night Stalker backdrop in LA, we kind of just lost the plot a little bit in Maxxxine, to the point where it felt like we were getting a detective story, but we were also getting a slasher, but we were also getting kind of this occult vibe as well, and that's where these two movies really feel much similar than they probably should. And that's the thing about these two movies. The occult vibe can work and does work. For instance, as much shit as everyone talks on Hereditary's third act, it really went for it. And when it goes for it in that third act in Hereditary, kind of goes to another level that these two don't ever quite reach. There's a what the fuck kind of quality to Hereditary that Longlegs and Maxxxine never really achieve. The occult stuff, for me personally, is only interesting when it does, dial it up to 10. And in Longlegs, like I mentioned, we have Nicolas Cage, we have Micah Monroe, but we also have Blair Underwood, who's kind of a grounding presence for that movie. Similarly, in Maxxxine, we get a whole host of different actors in different roles. You have Elizabeth Debicki in there. You also have Kevin Bacon, Halsey, and then you have Giancarlo Esposito. And boy, oh boy, did I absolutely love Giancarlo in that role. I think it was really refreshing, especially after his take, on Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, and most recently The Boys. I felt like that was a really good deviation for him. It really kind of made the movie feel larger than life almost with his presence there, and I certainly had a fun time watching him perform in that kind of way. But really, at the end of the day, Maxxxine is really only going to be known for just the star-studded cast that's kind of rounding out that film, and not necessarily for the substance and the material that was within it. As where with Longlegs, you're really going to remember and kind of reminisce on how they used the set decoration and the lighting, cinematography comparatively for the duration of, however long that movie's in conversation. And of course, Mia Goth and Micah Monroe are two excellent performers, and they turn out very different performances here. So these movies oddly have a lot of similarities, and they have a lot of differences too. And I think it's a way that they execute it. These are both writer-directors. These are both people who like to be at the helm of their own projects, and that can be a good thing. We saw it with X and Pearl, and we saw it with Longlegs. And no matter how disappointed I am in Longlegs and its potential that it didn't quite live up to, I do think that this is Perkins' best work as a director. You know, he previously directed things like The Black Coat's Daughter, Gretel and Hansel, and he also directed an episode of The Twilight Zone. So as far as, you know, his filmography goes, I think that this is the most solid work that he's put forth. I think Longlegs just needed a little bit of script polishing, and then for Maxxxine, I think the same is true. The reason that I'm just so disappointed with these two movie experiences is the fact that so many pieces of the puzzles were there. The casting, the cinematography, the set decoration, the overall vibe. My excitement level for Oz Perkins and Ty West's future projects is still pretty high. I don't think that this dissuaded me from watching anything that they make in the future by any means. And again, these aren't necessarily bad movies, they're just not quite where they should be. And I think Maxxxine in particular had more writing on it with previous two entries in that franchise, and it just didn't live up to the hype and the potential that was set by X and Pearl. Longlegs just didn't live up to the hype that it garnered from its marketing team. I think the marketing team, whoever was on that marketing team, hire them immediately. They did such good work at just getting people excited for it. But overall, I want to know what you all think of these two movies. Hop down in the comments below and let me know, and make sure to subscribe so you never miss another video essay or review in the future, and we will see you on the next one.